Beneath the tangled overhangs of coral ridges, where light fractures into ribbons and shadows wrap themselves like fingers around crevices, a predator waits. Silent and unseen, the moray eel coils its muscular body into the architecture of the reef, its slick skin blending with mottled rock and sponge. Here, motion is measured in millimeters, patience stretches into hours, and success depends not on speed, but on stillness. The moray's head emerges from the gloom like a living periscope, jaws slightly ajar, gills fluttering with an almost imperceptible rhythm. Unlike many fish, morays cannot draw water through their mouths to breathe while keeping still, so their throats pump constantly, a telltale sign for the trained observer but almost invisible to prey. Their small, lidless eyes scan the reefscape, not for distant shapes but for vibrations in the water, for the tremor of a careless fin or the flick of a shrimp's antennae. Despite their poor eyesight, morays compensate with a hypersensitive sense of smell, detecting chemical trails that waft into their den like silent invitations. What happens next defies the mechanics of most vertebrate jaws. As an unsuspecting damselfish edges closer, picking at algae near the moray's lair, the eel's head shoots out with astonishing speed, not just snapping forward, but delivering a two-stage attack. The outer jaws clamp down first, holding the wriggling fish in place. But the true marvel lies deeper. From within the throat, a second pair of jaws launches forward, the pharyngeal jaws. These are not a quirky redundancy but a specialized evolutionary weapon, unique among bony fish in their mobile design. Like a pair of alien pincers, they seize the prey and draw it backward, deeper into the gullet. Not just pulling, but repositioning it for optimal swallowing. This is not a crude mechanism. It is coordinated, calculated, and remarkably efficient. Most fish rely on suction feeding, expanding their buccal cavity to vacuum in water and prey in one smooth gulp. But morays, with their narrow heads and elongated skulls, lack this capacity. Their solution, developed over millions of years of evolutionary pressure, is mechanical rather than hydraulic. The pharyngeal jaws give them a second grip, a backup system that ensures even struggling prey cannot escape once the outer teeth have made contact. These internal jaws are not passive. They are powered by their own set of muscles and joints, capable of independent motion, synchronized to lock prey with unnerving precision. Moray eels are not careless hunters. Their success hinges on positional strategy. Often they wedge themselves between rocks in a T formation, where two exits create an ambush triangle. When a prey item darts away from one perceived threat, it may blunder straight into the moray's waiting strike zone. This architectural use of the reef is not accidental. It suggests spatial awareness and memory. Some morays revisit the same dens repeatedly, using landmarks to orient themselves like sentinels of stone. In some regions, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, morays have been observed engaging in a remarkable behavior, cooperative hunting with groupers. The two species, though entirely unrelated and physically mismatched, seem to understand each other's roles. A grouper will approach a moray resting in its crevice and perform a vigorous headshake, signaling the invitation. The moray responds by slithering from its hole, and together the pair scour the reef. The grouper patrols open water while the moray probes into crevices. If prey flees the grouper's advance, it often bolts into a crevice, straight into the jaws of the moray. Conversely, prey flushed out by the eel's intrusion may be snatched by the grouper. Whether this is true interspecies cooperation or opportunistic alignment remains debated, but the coordination is striking. It hints at behavioral complexity in an animal often dismissed as primitive. Their teeth are needle-thin, recurved, and often translucent, designed to pierce and hold rather than slice. In some species, such as the giant moray, the jaws are not only massive but capable of significant pressure. Others, like the fang-tooth moray, have elongated canines so exaggerated they must be housed in special sockets in the upper jaw to allow the mouth to close fully. These tools are not merely for grasping, they are adaptations tuned to prey type. Fish, crustaceans, cephalopods, each requires a different grip, a different entry angle, and morays adjust accordingly. What makes morays even more effective is their body plan. Unlike most predatory fish, they lack pectoral fins, giving them a sinuous, snake-like movement ideal for navigating narrow channels in coral or rock. Their entire frame can undulate through passages no larger than a human wrist. Once inside a crevice, they twist and anchor, using the environment as leverage. If threatened, they can disappear in reverse, retreating backward through the same tight spaces. coiling and vanishing into the reef like smoke into a crack. Morays are also notoriously territorial. While they may share reef space with other species, they often defend their preferred dens with remarkable vigor. Battles between morays, especially of the same species, can be brutal, with deep gouges and missing fins common. Their skin, covered not in scales but a thick mucus layer, provides some protection, but also serves another function. It wards off parasites and infections in the sharp coral environment. In some species, this mucus may even be mildly toxic, an additional layer of defense in the tight quarters they inhabit. Despite their fearsome appearance and dramatic jaw system, morays are not reckless killers. Their hunting success depends on timing, environment, and the element of surprise. They rarely chase. They wait, calculate, and then explode. Each kill is an exercise in engineering. Body placement, jaw sequence, and throat mechanics working in concert like a living trap. As night falls across the reef, the moray emerges fully from its den, winding through the labyrinth of coral in slow, deliberate loops. Nocturnal by nature, many species begin their patrols at dusk, using the dimming light as camouflage. Their muscular bodies ripple with ease, their heads scanning left and right, nostrils flaring to detect the trail of a wounded parrotfish or the musk of a molting crab. To watch a moray in full hunting mode is to witness a relic of deep time, a creature that has solved problems not with brute force, but with evolutionary finesse, anatomical innovation, and an eerie kind of intelligence. In the realm of reef predators, where bursts of speed and brute jaw force dominate the leaderboard, the moray eel has carved a niche with a very different strategy. It does not outswim, it does not outmuscle, it outthinks, outhides, and when the moment comes, out-engineers. In the vastness of the open ocean, far beyond the cluttered reefs and continental shelves, silence gives way to a rhythm felt more than heard. Beneath the sunlit surface and down into the ink-blue twilight zone, something pulses through the water. A series of sharp, evenly spaced clicks that roll like distant thunder through the deep. This is not random noise. It is structure. It is intent. It is language of a kind, formed not with vocal cords, but through an organized cascade of internal structures buried deep within the skull of the largest toothed predator on Earth, the sperm whale. Descending into the depths, a female sperm whale holds her breath, a feat she will maintain for up to an hour, as she follows the thermocline into colder, darker territory. Her head, disproportionately massive, contains a specialized organ called the spermaceti, a waxy, oil-filled chamber that plays a central role in both buoyancy and sonar. She emits powerful echolocation clicks that can reach over 230 decibels, louder than a jet engine, and uses the returning echoes to paint a mental image of her surroundings, hunting squid in the midwater gloom. But when those clicks shift from foraging pulses to patterned bursts, spaced, timed, and repeated, something else is happening. These are coders, and they serve a different purpose entirely. Coders are structured sequences of clicks, like Morse code without wires. They do not navigate. They communicate. Each coder, a specific arrangement of clicks, conveys identity, location, perhaps even emotion. Sperm whales live in tight-knit matrilineal units, composed of mothers, daughters, aunts, and calves, and these coders form the acoustic glue that binds them together. When two whales resurface after long dives, they often reunite with a volley of coders, short click bursts that are exchanged in mutual recognition, like spoken names among friends. These vocalizations are not uniform across the species. Over the past 2 decades, researchers have catalogued distinct coder repertoires among different sperm whale groups across the globe. In the Eastern Pacific, for example, scientists have identified separate vocal clans, not defined by genetic lineage or geographical overlap, but by distinct dialects. One clan might favor repeated 2-click patterns, another a rapid 4-click coda, each group maintaining its own acoustic tradition like a regional accent. These dialects appear remarkably stable, passed down through generations not by inheritance but by learning. A calf does not know the coders of its clan by birth. It must listen, mimic, and internalize them, much like human children acquire spoken language. This phenomenon, cultural transmission, is rare in the animal kingdom, and especially complex in marine species, where the medium of communication is constantly shifting. But sperm whales demonstrate all the core ingredients: learned behavior, social cohesion, and persistence over time. Culture, in this context, does not imply cities or art. It means that knowledge and practices are not only shared, but taught. When a young whale listens to its mother's coders, it is not just learning who she is. It is joining a cultural lineage that stretches back centuries, encoded in sound. Social structure underpins this system. Female sperm whales form bonds that last lifetimes, with individuals remaining in the same unit for decades. These families travel together, dive together, and raise calves communally. When a calf is born, multiple adult females assist in its care, forming a protective ring when resting or nursing near the surface. Juveniles are often seen riding in the slipstream of older relatives, learning the rhythms of movement, breathing intervals, and even how to approach prey. This cooperative rearing is not born of instinct alone. It is facilitated by communication, constant contact through tactile gestures and acoustic exchanges. Males, by contrast, lead very different lives. After adolescence, they leave the natal unit and become wanderers. Some remain in mid-latitudes, moving between groups in search of mating opportunities. Others push toward the poles, growing massive in isolation and returning to the tropics only sporadically. These bulls, reaching lengths of 18 meters and weights over 50 tons, are often solitary, and their coders tend to fade with time, reflecting their disconnection from the social networks of their youth. The female-dominated family units, by contrast, are where the acoustic cultures thrive. Interestingly, vocal clans are not evenly distributed, nor do they coexist without friction. In areas like the Galapagos and the South Pacific, multiple clans overlap in range, but appear to avoid direct interaction. Their coders remain distinct, suggesting not only recognition of difference, but perhaps a form of social boundary, an invisible map drawn in sound rather than space. These divisions resemble the ethno-linguistic boundaries found in early human societies, where groups with differing dialects or customs might share land but not identity. The implications of this go far beyond semantics. Coders influence social alliance, mating preferences, and even migration routes. Whales from the same vocal clan tend to associate more closely, sharing not just hunting grounds, but synchronized travel and resting patterns. Some clans specialize in particular regions or prey strategies, indicating a link between vocal identity and ecological knowledge. One group may focus on deep diving for large squid. Another may hunt closer to the surface, adapting to different prey types based on generational teaching. The cultural divide is not just audible, it is practical. Such behaviors are difficult to observe directly, but the growing use of hydrophone arrays, digital acoustic tags, and long-term satellite tracking has opened new windows into this hidden world. By following vocal groups over years, researchers have begun to reconstruct migration corridors and clan interactions across ocean basins. What has emerged is a picture of dynamic sound-based societies operating across thousands of kilometers, loose constellations of kinship and identity, maintained by memory and clicks in the dark. At the surface, sperm whale units often engage in rest dives, drifting together in vertical formation, heads down and tails skyward like a forest of trunks suspended in blue. During these rest phases, communication continues. Soft contact clicks ripple through the group, punctuated by occasional coders. Even in repose, the family remains acoustically linked. Calves nuzzle against mothers or hover close to another adult, receiving guidance through touch and tone alike. This extended family system allows for redundancy in care and resilience in adversity. If one adult is lost, to predation, ship strike, or stranding, others remain to fill the gap. Knowledge is distributed, not concentrated, and so it endures. Sperm whales are not unique in possessing social bonds or learned behavior, but the scale and sophistication of their vocal culture places them among a rare tier of non-human animals, alongside elephants, some primates, and a handful of bird species, capable of cumulative, socially transmitted knowledge. In the ocean, where vision fades quickly and contact is fleeting, such a system is not just useful, it is essential. Long-range sound travels farther and more reliably through water than any other medium. In this world, identity is not visual, it is acoustic. These whales are not blank slates born into chaos. They are members of ancient matrilineal clans that stretch across oceanic distances and back through uncounted generations. Their cultures are not stagnant. They evolve slowly, adapting to environmental shifts, fishing pressures, and noise pollution. In some regions, coders have become shorter, perhaps to compensate for the low-frequency rumble of ship engines that now dominates the marine soundscape. In others, groups have shifted foraging strategies or timing, adjustments likely born of trial, error, and instruction. Yet for all their adaptations, sperm whales remain vulnerable to changes they cannot control. Their long lifespans, often exceeding 70 years, and slow reproduction make recovery from loss difficult. Whaling decimated many populations in the 19th and 20th centuries, stripping not just numbers but social memory. When entire matriarchal units were removed, the codas they carried often vanished with them. Rebuilding these cultural lineages is not a matter of biology alone. It is a process of learning, transmission, and time. To listen to a sperm whale's coda is to eavesdrop on a system as old as oral history, carried not in words but in waveform. It is to glimpse a society organized by sound, shaped by shared knowledge, and sustained by bonds that stretch beyond the individual. In a medium where visibility is short and silence can mean isolation, these clicks are not noise. They are lifelines. They are heritage. And in the empty miles of the open ocean, they are the architecture of belonging. In the early light of dawn, as the ocean transitions from shadow to shimmer, the great white shark moves with deliberate ease. Its silhouette glides below the surface, just deep enough to remain unseen, just shallow enough to keep a tactical advantage over what swims above. There is no splash, no churn, no sign of urgency. This is not a chase. It is a methodical advance through water, layered with silence and signal. And while many focus on its brute power or iconic breaches, something far more subtle defines this predator's edge. The ability to detect invisible traces of life long before it ever sees it. The waters off the South African coast hold a rich web of life, fur seals, rays, fish schools, but they also host a challenge. Prey here can hide, burrow, even vanish from sight in the murk of dusk or beneath a silted seabed. Visual tracking alone will not suffice, especially in the dimness of the twilight zone or when a seal slips beneath kelp shadows. But the great white does not rely solely on sight. Built into its snout are hundreds of tiny gel-filled pores, each leading to a specialized electroreceptor called an ampulla of Lorenzini. Through this network, the shark reads the electric field generated by every living thing in its proximity. A twitching muscle, a firing neuron, a single heartbeat, all create an electrical signal. And for a great white, that signal is like a flare in the dark. Each ampulla connects via fine canals to clusters of sensory cells capable of interpreting voltage changes as slight as a billionth of a volt. That level of sensitivity means a shark can detect the faint pulse of a fish buried under several inches of sand, or pinpoint the exact direction of a struggling seal hidden behind a curtain of silt. Electroreception doesn't replace other senses. Instead, it augments them, serving as a final, hyper-focused targeting system once the prey has been narrowed down by smell or movement. When vision is compromised, in turbid water, under clouded skies, or deep beneath the surface, the ampullae step in as the definitive guide. Consider a stingray motionless under the sand, its body flat and still, with no vibration to give it away. It might escape notice from a visual predator, or even one relying on sound or water movement. But its organs still hum with electrical activity. Even in stasis, it cannot hide its bioelectric signature. The shark passes above, slows slightly, and then angles downward. No bubbles trail from its gills, no change in pace betrays intent, and yet it knows. With a flick of the tail and a tilt of the head, it strikes directly into the sand, jaws widening just milliseconds before impact. The stingray, now exposed, thrashes too late. The shark's precision comes not from guesswork but from a reading of electric reality most species never perceive. This ability isn't merely passive, it is directionally tuned. As the shark closes in, differences in voltage detected across the ampullae array allow it to triangulate the exact location of the source. In effect, it perceives the electrical landscape the way a person reads a scent on the wind, not as a single pinpoint, but as a shifting directional field that grows stronger with each micro-adjustment of heading and posture. Researchers have found that in controlled conditions, even when blindfolded and deprived of all other stimuli, great whites can still detect and respond accurately to buried prey if a heartbeat simulator is placed beneath the sand. This shows that their attacks are not instinctive lunges based on shape or sound, but calculated responses to invisible data. When hunting agile prey such as seals, The great white employs this system in conjunction with its other senses in a carefully choreographed sequence. Initial detection often begins at long range, with olfaction, the ability to smell trace chemicals like blood or fish oils over kilometers. As it closes the distance, visual confirmation and movement cues refine its path. But during the final moments, particularly when prey makes evasive maneuvers or uses terrain for concealment, electroreception becomes dominant. In low light or chaotic conditions, when a fleeing seal dives into a kelp forest or beneath a wave crest, the shark tracks not with its eyes, but with its face. It veers and accelerates in response to flickering pulses it cannot see, adjusting its trajectory in real time to the electrical choreography of a body trying to escape. Even post-strike, this system plays a role. Great whites are known to bite and release in some encounters, particularly with larger or more dangerous prey. They then circle back, waiting for the prey to weaken before moving in again. During this interval, the shark may remain unseen, lingering just beyond the range of sight, using its ampullae to monitor the fading signature of the wounded animal. If the electric rhythm weakens, irregular pulses, slowing heart rate, the shark closes in. If the pulses remain strong and erratic, it may hold off, reducing risk. This strategic use of electroreception highlights not only its sensory precision, but its integration into behavioral decisions. Unlike other sharks that rely heavily on lateral line detection or vibration, the great white's ampullae are particularly concentrated in the front of the snout and beneath the eyes, creating a dense, forward-facing sensory field. This arrangement enhances short-range targeting, allowing for exact timing during breach attacks. The leap itself, a burst of energy that can launch a 1,000-kilogram body 3 meters into the air, is not guesswork. It's the result of silent calculation, depth control, and electric tracking honed to the final heartbeat before impact. And despite its cinematic drama, the breach is rare, used mainly when stealth and distance align with an opportunity too perfect to ignore. There is also a lesser-known, more subtle application of electroreception in social and territorial contexts. Great whites are not pack hunters, but they do cross paths at feeding grounds and migratory stops. Electroreception allows them to perceive not only prey but also each other. The movement of other sharks, the stress levels of nearby fish, the presence of scavengers, all register in the electromagnetic spectrum. In crowded waters, where competitive scavenging might lead to conflict, these cues may help avoid unnecessary clashes. A shark, sensing the elevated field of another aggressive individual, may alter its course or delay its approach, reducing confrontation. While largely solitary, these predators are not unaware of the presence or mood of others. Environmental factors also influence how and when electroreception is used. Salinity, temperature, and noise pollution can all affect signal clarity. In colder, denser water, electric fields propagate differently than in warm, shallow seas. A shark navigating multiple zones must recalibrate its sensitivity to match the conductivity of the medium. A task performed not through conscious thought, but through evolutionary tuning and lifelong exposure. In heavily trafficked human areas, the presence of electrical noise from boat engines, sonar, or underwater cables can mask weaker biological signals, potentially disrupting hunting efficiency. While this interference is not yet fully understood, it represents a growing concern in regions where sharks and industry overlap. The ampullae of Lorenzini have ancient origins, shared across all cartilaginous fish, including rays and other sharks. But in the great white, their configuration and integration with behavior suggest a level of specialization that supports its role as an apex hunter. Its dominance in temperate and coastal systems is not simply a matter of size or aggression, but of sensory superiority. To the casual observer, it may appear that the shark appears out of nowhere, strikes with impossible accuracy, and vanishes. But in truth, the attack has been building for minutes, silently tuned to a rhythm only the shark can hear. Through this lens, the great white is no longer just a torpedo with teeth. It is a finely honed biological instrument, moving through its environment with a sensory toolkit that renders even the invisible accessible. The ocean may seem vast and indifferent, but for this predator, it is filled with signals, maps, and cues. Where we see nothing, the shark sees a path. Where we hear silence, it hears the faint voltage of life. And where prey believes it has vanished, the shark has already marked its place. In the cold, nutrient-rich waters of southeast Alaska, where glacial runoff bleeds into the sea and herring schools churn the depths into silver clouds, a pod of humpback whales rises from the blue in coordinated silence. Beneath the surface, the ocean is layered with noise. The crackle of crustaceans on the seafloor, the pressure pulses of schooling fish, the low-frequency murmurs of distant cetaceans. But cutting through it all is a more deliberate sound, rhythmic, pulsed, and patterned. It is not a song in the artistic sense, but a signal, a sequence of tones laced with intent. This is a prelude, not a performance. The humpbacks are preparing a hunt, but not the solitary kind. This will not be a chase or ambush, but a collaboration, structured, timed, and spatially complex. As the herringball tightens, driven by instinct to cluster when threatened, the whales fan out below. Each individual takes its place, not randomly, but with clear purpose. One arcs beneath the school, beginning to exhale a continuous stream of bubbles in a rising spiral. Another circles wider, issuing short, forceful bursts. A third lingers just below the bait ball's base, where light begins to fade and disorientation takes hold. This is not improvisation. This is the beginning of the bubble net. Unlike most marine predators that rely on speed or force, humpbacks hunt with geometry. They use their exhalations not just to confuse, but to confine. The bubbles form a wall, an ephemeral vertical mesh of shimmering air that rises rapidly and envelops the prey. To a herring, the bubbles register as an obstacle, and the fish do what they are programmed to do. They turn inward. What they do not recognize is that the net is closing. From above, the shape is nearly architectural, a widening spiral that tapers at the surface, forming a cylinder of bubbles with one narrow opening. The fish are now in a trap they cannot see, herded not by teeth but by physics. Each whale in the pod contributes to the structure. Some produce the bubble curtain itself, releasing steady streams through their blowholes as they spiral upward. Others emit specialized calls, pulsed feeding sounds that help coordinate the action, perhaps even manipulating fish behavior through low-frequency vibrations. The lead whale, often the one initiating the net, emits a feeding call at a consistent point in the spiral. This acoustic cue not only alerts the others to synchronize their ascent, but may also serve to drive the fish upward toward the narrowing column of water. It is, in essence, a countdown. Then, at the precise moment, the entire group lunges upward in unison. From below, mouths open wide, cavernous, pleated throats ballooning outward to engulf tens of thousands of liters of water and fish. The timing is exact. The angle of ascent is coordinated to prevent collision. Each whale knows its position in the column, the space it occupies, and the rhythm of the collective strike. From the surface, the ocean erupts in a foamy burst of rostrums, baleen plates and gulls diving overhead to snatch the scattered remnants. It lasts only seconds, but the planning beneath it has unfolded over several minutes in layers of strategy, spatial logic, and cooperation. What makes the bubble net particularly unusual is not just its mechanics, but its shared execution. Among humpbacks, there is no single fixed leader. In some pods, the same whale may initiate the hunt repeatedly, recognized by researchers through distinct vocal signatures and roles observed over years. But in many groups, the leadership rotates. A whale that leads the spiral one day may follow it the next. Another might specialize in call timing, while a different individual takes on net construction. This flexible hierarchy, or lack thereof, suggests a form of decentralized intelligence. It is not dominance that defines the leader, but skill and memory. The whales that master the bubble net are not born with the knowledge. Calves do not perform the maneuver. Juveniles often observe from the periphery, participating gradually and awkwardly, like apprentices in a trade. The behavior is learned, refined over years through exposure and repetition. In some populations, such as those off the Hawaiian coast, bubble net feeding is absent entirely. Its presence in southeast Alaska and a few other regions indicates not a universal trait, but a localized, culturally transmitted technique. And like all cultures, it can evolve. Researchers have recorded variations in net shapes and vocal timing that differ by region and group. Some pods use tighter spirals, others extend the bubble curtain horizontally. In certain cases, whales have been seen coordinating nets with dolphins or sea lions, exploiting the movements of other predators to tighten the prey ball. The flexibility of the strategy points to high cognitive processing, not just mimicry or instinct, but adaptation. The scale of cooperation is also notable given the species. Humpbacks are not inherently social in the way that dolphins or orcas are. Outside of migratory routes and breeding congregations, they are often solitary. Yet during feeding seasons, they form these ephemeral alliances, temporary pods bound by mutual benefit and behavioral alignment. There is no long-term bonding or kin-based hierarchy driving these formations. They are opportunistic but highly functional, shaped by a shared knowledge and an unspoken agreement to act in unison for the reward. Beneath this cooperation lies one of the most complex feeding anatomies in the animal kingdom. Humpbacks are lunge feeders, a method that requires tremendous physiological coordination. Their mouths can expand to several times their resting volume, thanks to pleated grooves that run along the underside of the jaw and belly. These grooves stretch outward like accordion folds, allowing the whale to engulf a massive bolus of prey-laden water in one strike. Once the mouth closes, the whale uses its tongue to push the water back through the baleen plates, keratin fringes that sieve the fish from the fluid. Each lunge is a high-energy event, it must count. The bubble net ensures that the target is concentrated, controlled, and contained. There's also risk in the method. The energy required to produce a bubble net and coordinate a group ascent is substantial. If mistimed or disrupted by a shift in currents, an unexpected predator, or human interference, the entire trap collapses. The fish scatter, the hunt fails, and the opportunity is lost. This makes the precision of the behavior even more remarkable. That multiple animals, each weighing upwards of 30 tons, can coordinate movement, timing, vocalizations, and trajectories with such consistency, all without centralized control, is a rare feat in the wild. Studies using hydrophones and aerial drones have begun to reconstruct these events in fine detail. Spectrograms reveal consistent patterns in the pre-lunge calls, indicating not random noise but deliberate structured sound. Thermal imagery shows the changing density of the prey ball as the net constricts. And GPS-tagged whales display synchronized depth changes that align to within seconds. These are not flukes of nature. They are sequences, with cause, effect, and intent. In a broader sense, the bubble net reflects something more than feeding efficiency. It is a lens into how intelligence operates in distributed systems. Without a leader, without speech, without planning in any conventional sense, these animals align around a shared task through real-time feedback, experience, and mutual sensing. It is not mindless mimicry but mutual adjustment. Each whale reads the cues of the others, their trajectory, their timing, their sound, and modifies its own behavior accordingly. The result is not choreography imposed from above, but one that emerges from within. And when the sea quiets, when the feeding frenzy subsides and the gulls drift off, the whales sink back into the deep. Their silhouettes disperse once more, vanishing into separate currents, unbound by social tether, yet still linked by the knowledge of the hunt. In the dark below, they will rest, digest, and perhaps sing. Not just to court or announce, but to remember. For in their songs and in their spirals, there lies a record, not written in ink or stone, but in bubbles, echoes, and motion, of a strategy taught, shared, and repeated across generations. In the shallows of the Pacific, where reef meets open ocean and light splinters across the backs of coral heads, a dark shape glides in lazy arcs over the sand. The water is warm, the current gentle, the terrain dotted with discarded shells, fish remains, and drifting algae, a shifting graveyard and feeding ground rolled into one. The tiger shark does not move with urgency. Its wide, blunt head swings left and right as it scans the seabed, body swaying with a methodical pulse. Unlike the calculated ambush of a great white or the choreographed coordination of a humpback pod, the tiger shark's strategy is broader, looser, less about precision than opportunity. It is not looking for a specific meal, it is looking for anything. Tiger sharks have earned their reputation as indiscriminate eaters. Their stomach contents have included everything from license plates and plastic bags to bird feathers, squid beaks, turtles, and chunks of seal. It would be easy, and wrong, to write them off as oceanic garbage disposals. In reality, the variety found in their digestive systems tells a deeper story. While other predators narrow their diet with specialization, tiger sharks diversify, adapting to shifting ecological opportunities. And in doing so, they unintentionally document what's happening in the waters they patrol. Their stomachs become biological archives, storing fragments of marine life and death from across vast regions. They are, in a very real sense, roaming data collectors, carrying the environmental record in their bellies. The shark now drifts over a nesting beach just offshore, its shadow flickering across the sand as seabirds squabble and wheel above. During certain seasons, the tiger shark's path overlaps with hatching events. Seabird chicks launching into water for the first time, unsteady and naive, a chaotic buffet that attracts not only fish and rays, but these large-bodied predators from the deep. Researchers examining stomachs of captured tiger sharks in Hawaii and the Indian Ocean have found startling quantities of seabird remains. Not just feathers, but entire intact chicks, bones and beaks. DNA analysis has revealed the presence of multiple bird species, some of which were declining in number or thought to nest elsewhere. It was not just a feeding clue, it was a distribution map. These discoveries shifted how scientists track marine bird populations. Traditional methods, counting colonies, tagging individuals, are limited by budget, logistics, and terrain. But tiger sharks offered another, if macabre, data stream. By studying what these sharks had consumed, biologists could infer migratory patterns, hatching dates, and even reproductive failures in species where nest monitoring was impossible. The predators, unaware of their contribution, were helping fill in the blanks of ecological models. The more they consumed, the more they revealed. In another part of the world, a juvenile green turtle paddles over a seagrass bed, grazing in loops, unaware of the shadow closing behind. The tiger shark strikes not with speed, but with mass. Its serrated teeth, unlike the piercing fangs of most sharks, are built for shearing, wide, jagged edges capable of slicing through carapace and bone. Turtles are not easy prey. They are armored, alert, and often travel in shallows difficult for larger predators to navigate. But tiger sharks have adapted. Their unusually slow metabolism allows them to wait and conserve energy, their broad diets cushioning them from the need for daily kills. And when a turtle is caught, the shark's stomach becomes an ecological record of migratory paths, because many sea turtles are tagged. Satellite transmitters, metal flipper tags, even plastic identifiers placed by conservation teams have turned up inside tiger shark stomachs. This grim but valuable reality has provided insights into which turtle populations are being preyed upon, how far they travel, and which beaches or feeding grounds may be becoming hotspots of predator activity. In some cases, a single tag found in a shark gut revealed a turtle's final journey of over 2,000 kilometers. It is a brutal but effective way of tracing life history to its endpoint. The tiger shark's non-selective feeding has also shed light on less visible threats. In recent years, plastic pollution has become a critical issue across marine ecosystems. While many species ingest plastic due to mistaken identity, a floating bag for a jellyfish, for example, tiger sharks consume it simply because it was attached to, or once contained, food. Inside their stomachs, scientists have found bottle caps, packaging, rubber fragments, and fishing gear. Unlike some species, tiger sharks often survive the ingestion of plastic, thanks in part to their durable digestive tracts and their ability to regurgitate indigestible matter. But their exposure provides a crude index of marine pollution concentration. Sharks caught near coastal cities tend to have more synthetic debris in their stomachs than those from remote islands, suggesting clear gradients of contamination. By sampling these predators across multiple regions, researchers are beginning to map how garbage moves through ocean systems and which ecosystems are most affected. This accidental accumulation of information has turned tiger sharks into a kind of forensic tool, their stomachs examined not just to learn about their behavior, but to investigate broader ecological questions. What prey is disappearing or declining? What migratory species are showing up in new areas? Which pollutants are penetrating the food web? Each item ingested becomes a clue, a data point, and sometimes a red flag. Tiger sharks' wide range plays a critical role in this function. Unlike reef sharks or coastal species with narrow home ranges, tiger sharks are highly mobile, traveling thousands of kilometers between feeding zones, mating sites, and pupping grounds. Satellite tagging has shown individuals moving between archipelagos, crossing deep pelagic channels, and even diving to depths of over 1,000 meters. This movement gives them a panoramic perspective on the ocean, not just vertically, but geographically. Their stomach contents don't represent one habitat, but many. A single shark might carry remnants from coral reefs, seagrass beds, open ocean hunting grounds, and estuarine nurseries all at once. Despite their broad diet, tiger sharks are not haphazard feeders. There is evidence that individuals learn and revisit productive hunting areas. Some return seasonally to turtle nesting beaches or seabird colonies. Others have been observed near fish cleaning stations, scavenging discarded scraps with eerie consistency. Their routes are not random wanderings, but informed movements shaped by memory, opportunity, and subtle shifts in prey behavior. In this sense, they operate less like chaotic predators and more like strategic generalists, diversifying risk, adjusting tactics, and maximizing nutritional return. At the same time, their tendency to eat a wide variety of items, biological or otherwise, can put them at risk. Ingested fishing hooks, rope, and other debris have injured or killed some individuals. As apex predators, they occupy a key position in marine food webs, and their health is tied to that of the ecosystem. If their stomachs fill increasingly with plastic, if prey is replaced with refuse, it's not just their fate that hangs in the balance. It's a signal of larger imbalances cascading through the sea. Yet tiger sharks persist, adapting not just across habitats but through time. Their lineage stretches back over 50 million years. They've survived mass extinctions, climate shifts, and sea level changes. Their evolutionary strategy, flexibility, resilience, opportunism, has kept them in the game where others failed. But today their adaptability is being tested by modern pressures, overfishing, habitat loss, and synthetic pollution. Their stomachs, once filled with evolutionary records, now hold pieces of a world increasingly shaped by human negligence. To watch a tiger shark feed is to witness a blend of instinct and investigation. It doesn't simply bite. It samples. It interprets. It moves through the world not with aimless hunger but with a broad, scanning presence. Every object encountered is tested. Every scent followed to its logical conclusion. In the process, it becomes more than predator. It becomes a reflection of everything it encounters, a mirror of life in motion, and increasingly a record of what is going wrong. Whether consuming turtles, seabirds, or plastic, the tiger shark leaves behind a map, not of intent, but of contact. In its gut lies not only its own history, but ours. It patrols the boundary between the natural and the altered, between life and what has replaced it. And if we are willing to read it, the story it carries is one that spans entire ecosystems, told in fragments of shell, feather, and synthetic waste, a biological archive drifting just below the surface. In the rocky shallows of a coastal reef, where kelp drifts in the rhythm of the tides and shafts of filtered sunlight ripple across the seabed, a mound of algae twitches, subtly, almost imperceptibly. It lies against a boulder, unmoving except for the gentle flutter of what appears to be seaweed caught in the current. But as a fish drifts too close, the illusion collapses. In a split second, the algae shifts, expands, ripples with sudden texture, and resolves into an octopus. Its arms uncurl like ribbons shaken loose from a fist, eyes swiveling to track the intruder, skin flushing from mottled green to warning red. It does not vocalize, and it cannot posture in the way vertebrates do, but its message is unmistakable. Stay back. I see you. I am not what I seemed. To understand the octopus is to step away from the assumptions shaped by bone, voice, and social structure. It has no skeleton, no centralized face, no permanent form. Yet it communicates, not with sound, but with light, texture, and motion. It does not speak, but it signals constantly. Its skin is alive with meaning, a dynamic interface of chromatophores, iridophores, and papillae that allow it to transform in milliseconds. Unlike camouflage in other animals, which is largely passive or slow, the octopus uses its skin as a real-time tool of expression. It is both armor and display, deception and declaration. The complexity begins with color. Just beneath the surface of the skin, thousands of pigment sacs contract or expand under muscular control. These chromatophores contain blacks, reds, browns, and yellows, layered with reflective cells that manipulate light itself. By coordinating the activation of these cells across different parts of the body, the octopus can flash, fade, or pulse with startling control. But this display is not random. In social interactions, rare but not absent, octopuses will often exhibit lateralized coloration. One side of the body may turn pale and unthreatening, while the other blazes with intensity, depending on who is watching. During territorial encounters, an octopus facing a rival might shift to high-contrast banding or a darkened mantle, while keeping the opposite side neutral toward a third observer. It is essentially a dual-channel broadcast, a sophisticated way of speaking to multiple individuals simultaneously without a single sound. In mating, the stakes of miscommunication are high. Many octopus species are solitary and cautious, and approaching the wrong individual, or approaching at the wrong moment, can result in an attack. Yet courtship still occurs, and when it does, body language becomes everything. A male octopus cyanea, for example, may darken his body and extend a single arm, the hectocotylus, in the direction of a female. If she remains still or mirrors his coloring, he might inch closer, arms coiling slowly like loaded springs, his skin rippling in waves of complex patterning. If she flares in color or expands her papillae into aggressive spikes, he may reconsider. In some cases, males adopt deceptive tactics. Smaller or subordinate males have been observed camouflaging themselves as females by suppressing their typical patterns, sneaking past dominant males to reach a mate undetected. This act of tactical mimicry requires not only visual deception, but an awareness of being watched, a behavioral sophistication rare in invertebrates. Beyond mating, body language governs territory disputes, predation, and even play. When two octopuses encounter each other over a desirable den or hunting ground, they rarely engage in physical combat unless necessary. Instead, they posture through shifting patterns, sudden blots of darkness that resemble the eyes of larger animals, rapid pulsations that mimic threat responses, or raised arms that frame the body in defensive geometry. These gestures are backed by movement, not erratic but calculated. An octopus might elevate its mantle slightly, elongate its arms, and glide sideways with deliberate speed. It's not fleeing, but warning. If challenged, it may inflate its body and lift high on its arm tips, trying to appear larger. But if the opponent does not yield, the posturing dissolves into a flash of ink and retreat, a message unambiguously clear. The skin's texture also plays a role. Octopuses can raise and flatten papillae, small muscular projections, to alter the three-dimensional appearance of their skin. Smooth for stealth, spiky for alarm, mottled for distraction. Texture is often combined with color for maximum effect. A rock-like gray palette becomes more convincing with roughened skin. A flashy display becomes more jarring when paired with sharp ridges. Some researchers suspect that certain texture changes serve not only for camouflage, but for social signaling, especially during moments of agitation or recognition. Perhaps most fascinating is how octopuses use their movement to communicate uncertainty, curiosity, or misdirection. An octopus navigating unfamiliar terrain might stretch one arm ahead like a blind man's cane, testing surfaces with tactile suction. Its body may trail behind in a low, flattened posture, the color muted, a blend of caution and exploration. In contrast, a confident octopus on the hunt moves with rolling momentum, arms fanning outward to probe crevices while its skin flares with excitement. Dark mantles, rhythmic flashes, alternating patterns that almost seem to beat with pulse and intent. When startled, some octopuses have been seen flaring into a high-contrast false-eye pattern on their mantle while jetting in the opposite direction, an act of decoy rather than defense. While most of this signaling occurs within the confines of a solitary life, some species like the day octopus, Octopus cyanea, and the larger Octopus tetricus are more gregarious than once thought. In certain habitats, such as the Octopolis and Octlantis sites of Australia, groups of octopuses have been observed sharing space, tolerating proximity, and occasionally interacting in what appears to be a crude form of social structure. Here, visual signals become even more critical. Researchers documented repeated body postures and color displays consistent across individuals, suggesting a limited but standardized set of visual cues used to manage encounters, establish boundaries, and avoid escalation. Unlike animals that rely on fixed signals, the bright feathers of a bird or the fixed gestures of a primate, the octopus reconfigures its entire body in real time. Its nervous system is distributed across its limbs, with 2/3 of its neurons located not in its brain, but in its arms. This decentralized structure allows each limb to explore, react, and manipulate independently, while still participating in larger, coordinated actions. This decentralization may help explain how octopuses manage such fast, fluid changes in body state, turning from invisible to threatening in fractions of a second. But it also introduces a unique form of communication, one where intent and action are not merely dictated from a central brain, but negotiated across the entire body. The ability to shapeshift is not simply for display or disguise. It's a form of embodied language, a syntax of skin and motion. Octopuses do not form alliances. They do not raise offspring communally, and their lifespans are short. Yet within that brief time, they demonstrate a capacity for expression that is both rich and ambiguous, full of contradiction and nuance. Their signals are not rigid scripts, but flexible expressions of mood, threat, interest, and uncertainty. To a human observer, the meanings are not always clear. But among octopuses, the signals land with precision, guiding approach, retreat, attack, and mating. In the end, the octopus navigates its world not with speech or facial cues, but with a body that speaks every second, a language written in color, muscle, and fluid motion. In its skin lies a living interface, a responsive canvas that adjusts not just to the environment, but to the behavior of others. It sees and is seen without words, without bone, and without precedent in the vertebrate world. In the silent theater of the reef, the octopus performs, not for show but for survival. Every pulse of pigment and twitch of texture a message in motion. In the early morning calm, the surface of the coastal lagoon is barely disturbed. Only the occasional ripple from a school of mullet or the distant sweep of a pelican's wings cuts through the stillness. Beneath this glassy surface, however, a different rhythm pulses. A pod of bottlenose dolphins moves as a single unit, rising and diving in loose synchrony, their grey backs glinting just long enough to catch the light before slipping beneath again. To the casual eye, their movement appears playful, almost spontaneous. But there is an undercurrent of precision here, one that suggests something more deliberate. The pod is not just traveling, it is deciding. Among bottlenose dolphins, group cohesion is not a matter of hierarchy or blind instinct. It is a negotiated process, often guided by silent signals that ripple across the pod in barely perceptible gestures. In some of the most revealing observations ever recorded, dolphins in the wild have been seen pausing mid-swim, aligning their bodies side by side, and engaging in a synchronized downward nod, a brief shared motion before all individuals pivot and move in unison. To human observers, it may appear as coincidence or mimicry, but repeated instances under varied conditions tell a different story. These aren't random gestures, they are votes. The process lacks the ceremony of human democracy, but the function is strikingly similar. Dolphins appear to weigh options, whether to hunt or rest, whether to pursue a fish school or retreat from a threat, and reach consensus through body alignment, pacing changes, and coordinated turns. It's a form of non-verbal polling, a method of mutual agreement that emerges not from command, but from group sensing. When several individuals perform the same nod or turn in quick succession, the rest follow. No single dolphin leads by force, and yet direction is chosen. Decisions, it seems, are made together. This form of consensus building likely evolved from the practical necessities of survival in a social, mobile environment. Bottlenose dolphins live in fluid fission fusion societies, groups that form, dissolve, and reform with shifting compositions. Within these pods, individuals must constantly negotiate space, access to food, mating opportunities, and safety. A rigid pecking order would collapse under this constant flux. Instead, dolphins employ a more elastic social structure where influence is distributed and roles shift depending on context. One dolphin might lead during a hunt, another during evasive maneuvers, and yet another during rest cycles. These roles are not static. In some cases, individuals with strong social bonds, often long-term male alliances or close mother-offspring pairs, appear to initiate directional changes, and their companions follow out of trust or familiarity. In other moments, less dominant dolphins gain temporary influence, particularly when they are the first to detect a threat or the most motivated to hunt. Influence is fluid, determined not by fixed status, but by relevance in the moment. It's a tactical system that allows dolphins to adapt their leadership according to need, reducing friction and increasing efficiency. The consensus model extends beyond simple movement. During cooperative foraging, such as herding fish into tight balls or trapping them in shallow water, dolphins must synchronize not only their actions but their intentions. One dolphin may create a mud ring by slapping the seabed with its tail, forcing fish to leap into the mouths of waiting companions. Others corral prey into narrow channels or drive them toward the shoreline. Success depends on real-time coordination, each participant adjusting their position in response to the others, reading subtle cues of movement and posture. When conflict arises, over food, space, or mates, bottlenose dolphins rarely resort to violence outright. Instead, they use a layered strategy of avoidance, appeasement, and negotiated retreat. Vocalizations shift to lower frequencies, clicks become more measured, and physical spacing increases. Pectoral fin touches, often associated with bonding and reassurance, become tools for de-escalation. Researchers have noted that after a brief aggressive encounter, dolphins often re-establish contact with fin rubs or parallel swimming, a kind of reset gesture that prevents lingering hostility. In social systems where long-term cooperation is crucial, maintaining harmony takes precedence over dominance. What is particularly unusual about dolphin conflict resolution is the apparent absence of lasting grudges. Unlike primates who may punish or ostracize after social breaches, dolphins seem to compartmentalize. A squabble over food may end quickly, and the same individuals may work side by side during the next foraging event. This behavioral flexibility suggests not just social intelligence, but emotional regulation, the ability to contextualize disagreement and avoid letting it fracture future cooperation. Underpinning all of this is a level of cognition rarely seen in the wild. Bottlenose dolphins possess complex neocortices, advanced auditory processing, and a capacity for symbolic understanding. They recognize themselves in mirrors, understand referential gestures, and even invent signature whistles, unique acoustic identifiers akin to names. But it's the subtle, shared behaviors, the nods, the shifts in motion, the near-simultaneous dives, that speak most to their social depth. In these moments, dolphins are not just reacting, they are responding to each other's intent. These behaviors are more than curiosities. They are adaptive strategies for life in an unpredictable environment. Coastal waters change rapidly. Prey moves in pulses. Predators, from sharks to orcas, strike without warning. In this setting, a rigid chain of command would fail. What dolphins need is rapid, decentralized decision-making, a way to coordinate action without paralysis or chaos. Their solution is not domination, but dialogue. Their nods are not orders, but proposals. Over the past decade, scientists using drone footage and underwater audio arrays have begun to piece together the complex interplay between these signals. Acoustic recordings reveal that synchronized behaviors often follow brief exchanges of low-frequency pulses, not full whistles but short, sharp clicks that may serve as attention cues. When multiple dolphins emit these clicks in close sequence, followed by aligned swimming, the group shifts direction within seconds. It is not always clear who initiates the change, but the pattern is consistent. Synchronization leads to consensus, and consensus leads to action. And sometimes, the vote fails. A subset of the group may diverge, unwilling to follow the majority. The pod splits, temporarily, and may rejoin hours later. These splits are not signs of dysfunction, but part of the fission-fusion model that allows dolphins to tailor their social group to immediate needs. Flexibility is built into the system, allowing subgroups to form, test different foraging strategies, and regroup based on success. The ocean, after all, rewards those who can pivot. Even in captive settings, dolphins have demonstrated an ability to coordinate and take turns, sharing toys, alternating roles in cooperative tasks, and resolving conflicts without overt aggression. These observations underscore what wild studies suggest. Dolphins are not just clever performers, but adaptive social thinkers. Their societies rely not on dominance hierarchies, but on a constant ebb and flow of influence, mediated by trust, memory, and real-time feedback. It would be inaccurate to describe these behaviors as human-like in any sentimental sense. Dolphins are not miniature democrats conducting referenda, but they have evolved a parallel solution to the same problem. How do you make group decisions when no one individual has all the information, and when the cost of bad coordination could be life-threatening? Their answer is nonverbal alignment, decisions shaped by motion, mutual sensing, and the ability to listen without sound. In the end, the pod reassembles near the estuary mouth. The tide is shifting, and a school of sardines glimmers just beyond the silt line. The dolphins pause for a moment, surfacing and exhaling in a quiet rhythm. Then, a synchronized dip of several heads, a shared turn, and they are off, not commanded, but agreed. Their motion says everything. In the filtered blue depths where the sunlight begins to lose its grip on the upper ocean, the outline of a moving landmass shifts silently through the water. From a distance, it resembles a drifting shadow, slow and steady, with the scale of a small bus but none of the noise. As it approaches, its shape resolves. Broad, flattened head, a body lined with a checkerboard of pale spots and stripes, and a mouth wide enough to swallow a diver whole. This is Rhincodon typus, the whale shark, the largest fish on Earth. Despite its size, often stretching over 12 meters, it glides through the sea with no urgency, its tail sweeping in long arcs, its entire form enveloped in a calm that belies the complex biological network traveling with it. At first glance, the whale shark appears solitary. It cruises tropical waters without packs, unhurried and seemingly detached from the dramas of reef life or pelagic chases. But the surface of its skin tells another story, one far more intricate and active. Magnified under a microscope, what appears to be a smooth, leathery expanse is in fact a landscape covered in ridges, grooves, and microscopic inhabitants. Thousands of tiny organisms, bacteria, fungi, even small crustaceans, live on and in its skin. Among them, researchers have recently discovered a particularly fascinating group: bioluminescent microbes. These microscopic hitchhikers emit light in faint pulses, often too dim to detect with the naked eye during the day, but in the darker reaches of the water column, their glow becomes perceptible. While bioluminescence is widespread in marine life, from jellyfish and plankton to deep-sea fish, its presence on the skin of whale sharks raised new questions. Why would the world's largest filter feeder be cloaked in faint light? And more intriguingly, could these tiny riders be more than mere passengers? The discovery began not with a direct hunt for glowing bacteria, but with a broader effort to understand whale shark migrations. These gentle giants are notoriously difficult to track. Unlike some sharks that frequent predictable coastlines or have specific pupping grounds, whale sharks roam vast expanses of ocean. They dive to depths exceeding 1,500 meters and may vanish from human observation for months or years. Traditional satellite tags, while useful, only skim the surface of their movement. Many fail to transmit after short periods, and few offer insight into the biological interactions occurring on the sharks' bodies themselves. Enter the microbial tags, not devices implanted or attached, but ecosystems encoded in cells. Scientists began analyzing swabs taken from the skin of whale sharks encountered at aggregation sites in Mexico, the Philippines, and the Maldives. What they found was a surprising level of consistency. Despite the sharks' massive range and different environments, specific microbial communities appeared again and again, not randomly scattered, but clustered in distinct patterns along the head, flanks, and tail. And among these communities were species known to produce light through chemical reactions involving luciferin and luciferase, compounds common in marine bioluminescence. What followed was a deeper exploration into whether these organisms could serve as living timestamps. Much like tree rings or isotopic signatures in ice cores, microbial communities change depending on environmental exposure. Water temperature, salinity, nutrient levels, and depth all shape microbial composition. By sampling and sequencing these microbial hitchhikers, researchers began reconstructing where the whale sharks had been, not based on direct observation, but on the biological footprints left on their skin. Each shark became a swimming archive, its microbiome a record of its travels through invisible gradients in the sea. This method, called microbial biologging, is still in its early stages, but it offers a powerful supplement to traditional tagging. For the first time, scientists are beginning to identify not just where a whale shark is, but where it has been. Changes in microbial composition correlate with known oceanographic features: oxygen minimum zones, coastal upwellings, thermocline layers. Over time, as more data accumulate, researchers hope to match specific microbial communities with particular regions or environmental conditions, effectively turning the whale shark into its own biosensor platform. But beyond their utility as tracking tools, the microbes themselves raise an evolutionary question. Do the sharks benefit from their glowing residence? At first glance, it seems counterintuitive. A glowing skin in the open ocean might make an animal more visible to predators or competitors. But for whale sharks, whose primary threat comes from humans rather than natural predators, visibility is not necessarily a disadvantage, especially given their enormous size and lack of aggressive behavior. In fact, in the mid-water twilight zones where they often feed, the bioluminescence may act as a form of counter-illumination, blending the shark's body with the dim light filtering from above and masking its silhouette from organisms below. This camouflage theory, observed in squid and some deep-sea fish, may apply in part to whale sharks. By carrying a faint ambient glow that mirrors the overhead light, the sharks could reduce their visibility from beneath. For a predator, this might be irrelevant. But for the small, sharp-eyed prey they target, clouds of plankton, krill and fish spawn, this subtle masking may improve feeding efficiency. Alternatively, the glow may not be for stealth at all, but for signaling. In certain light conditions, the patterns of bioluminescent microbes on the skin could create faint outlines or pulses recognizable to other whale sharks. Though solitary for much of their lives, whale sharks do form seasonal aggregations, sometimes with dozens or hundreds of individuals. The ability to visually recognize others in low light, even without relying on active communication, could facilitate temporary associations, mating events, or synchronized feeding. And then there's the third possibility. The light is simply incidental, a byproduct of an otherwise mutualistic relationship. The bacteria gain stable habitat on the shark's skin, access to nutrients shed in mucus and cellular debris, and a free ride through productive waters. The shark, in turn, gains protection from harmful microbes, as some bioluminescent bacteria are known to outcompete pathogens. This kind of microbial shield, common in coral reefs and invertebrate hosts, may apply here as well. The glow might be nothing more than a side effect, not functional, but also not harmful. Whatever the case, the presence of these organisms adds a new layer of biological depth to an already enigmatic species. The whale shark, often portrayed as a slow-moving filter giant with little complexity, is revealed to be a host, a mobile reef unto itself, carrying micro-ecosystems across ocean basins. Its skin, up to 10 centimeters thick and covered in dermal denticles, offers a stable substrate in an otherwise shifting sea. These ridges and valleys create microhabitats where bacteria can anchor and grow. The grooves channel water, but they also channel life. And the more we examine these surfaces, the more stories they tell. Tagging studies, once limited to GPS blips and dive profiles, now expand into genomic sequencing, microbial sampling, and fluorescence microscopy. Each new method adds a layer of context, turning the whale shark from a waypoint into a narrative. Its movements, once plotted with rough pins on a map, are now interpreted through chemical shifts, microbial succession, and the faint, silent glow of symbiotic light. In the end, the whale shark remains elusive. Its migrations cross political borders, its behavior shifts with seasons, and its size conceals a quiet delicacy in its interactions. But its skin, always in contact with the sea, always collecting its residue, holds clues. And with each sample, each observation, scientists piece together a picture not just of where these giants go, but how they live. In doing so, they illuminate more than just a fish. They reveal a system, vast, layered, and still glowing in the dark. The water is calm in the inland channels off British Columbia, a sheet of cold grey under an overcast sky, broken only by the slow, deliberate rise of a dorsal fin slicing through the surface. There is no hunt underway, no explosive breaches or coordinated charges, just the steady surfacing of a pod of orcas, a matrilineal family, tightly bonded, swimming in deliberate formation. At the center, one female swims more slowly than the others, her movements more labored. Balanced atop her rostrum is the limp body of a calf. It has not breathed in days, maybe weeks, and yet she refuses to let go. This is not an isolated behavior. It has been witnessed across populations. In the North Pacific, off New Zealand, even in Antarctic waters, female orcas, when faced with the loss of a newborn calf, have been observed carrying the body for prolonged periods, sometimes more than 2 weeks. They lift it from beneath, nudge it gently forward, keep it near the surface where it begins to decay. In colder waters, decomposition is slower, allowing them to hold onto the body even longer. The behavior is not functional. The calf cannot recover. Yet the mother maintains the ritual, aided at times by other pod members. This is not instinct in the strict sense. It is mourning. Among orcas, family is everything. Individuals are born into pods led by elder females, grandmothers who remember feeding roots, safe coves, and seasonal shifts. Sons often remain with their mothers for life. Daughters may form satellite pods but maintain regular reunions. Vocal dialects, unique to each pod, are passed down like surnames, binding generations through sound as much as blood. Within this structure, emotional attachment is not theoretical, it is observable. Members travel together, rest in close contact, and display unmistakable signs of stress when separated. When one pod member is injured or ill, others adjust pace or direction to stay close. When a calf is born, it is greeted by a circle of bodies and a flurry of tactile attention, flipper rubs, gentle nudges, and synchronized swimming. Such cohesion extends into teaching. Older females often guide younger ones during hunts, especially in populations that specialize in complex strategies like beaching to capture seals or using tail slaps to stun herring. Calves are not merely observers. They are taught through repetition, imitation, and coordinated practice. Skills passed down in a system resembling apprenticeship more than innate behavior. This culture, varying between pods and shaped by local conditions, is reinforced by deep social memory. Some killer whale populations have been seen to remember salmon spawning grounds or ice edge patterns for decades, behaviors preserved by elders and transferred to offspring. But perhaps the clearest window into orca emotional life comes not in moments of action, but in aftermaths. After hunts, pods regroup, sometimes ceasing activity entirely for hours. They surface in tighter formations, engage in prolonged contact, and vocalize in patterns not used during the pursuit. It's as though the success of the hunt demands acknowledgement, a return to baseline, a reaffirmation of connection after the intense coordination of predation. This regrouping is not for navigation or defense, it is social rebalancing. What emerges is a picture of orcas not just as tactical predators, but as emotional mammals, aware of each other's presence, condition, and absence. When a member dies, the group does not simply move on. Beyond the mother's vigil over a calf, other forms of response have been documented. Changes in vocalization patterns, reduction in foraging behavior, and shifts in swimming formation. In captive environments, orcas have refused to eat or participate in routines following the death of a companion, sometimes for days. In the wild, bereaved pods have altered course for no apparent navigational reason, circling areas where a death occurred, or remaining in known resting sites far beyond typical durations. The most famous case, the one that brought the world's attention to orca grief, was that of a mother known as Tahlequah, a southern resident orca in the Pacific Northwest. After the death of her calf in 2018, she carried the body for 17 days, traveling over 1,600 kilometers with it on her head. Her movements were closely monitored by scientists, and what they observed was not passive drifting, but active maintenance. Tahlequah repeatedly dove and resurfaced to retrieve the body when it slipped, adjusting her swim to accommodate the weight and resistance. At times, other pod members swam beside her, occasionally taking turns bearing the body. It was not anthropomorphism to interpret this as mourning. It was data-backed observation of behavior that serves no survival purpose, and yet persisted with intensity. From a biological standpoint, such prolonged mourning could be seen as maladaptive. The time and energy spent keeping a dead calf afloat could be used for foraging, resting, or social interaction. But emotional behavior in long-lived mammals often defies simple efficiency. Elephants, great apes, and dolphins have all shown signs of grief, pausing at the remains of conspecifics, touching and revisiting the bones of lost individuals. In such species, social cohesion and memory are not luxuries. They are integral to survival. And grief, as disruptive as it may be, is a function of that deep memory, a byproduct of bonds that persist beyond utility. What stands out in orca behavior is the balance between emotion and structure. Pods are not dysfunctional in grief. They adjust, accommodate, and continue. In some cases, surviving calves receive increased attention from other females, including non-mothers. Post-loss, some mothers adopt other calves or become unusually attentive to juveniles, as though redirecting their energy. In doing so, the pod collectively maintains its cohesion, not through denial of loss, but through shared compensation. This emotional awareness may also extend to interactions with other species. Orcas have been seen assisting stranded dolphins, releasing captured seals that posed no threat, and even playing with floating objects in what can only be described as social enrichment. While such behaviors are rare and context-dependent, they point to a cognitive depth that goes beyond the predatory reputation orcas often carry. Intelligence in orcas is not just about solving problems or coordinating attacks. It is about maintaining relationships, interpreting social signals, and adjusting behavior in complex emotional landscapes. Scientific understanding of orca emotion remains cautious, limited by the challenges of observation and the danger of projecting human experience onto animal behavior. But with each documented case, Each calf carried, each pod reunited, each shift in behavior following loss, a pattern emerges. These are not isolated anecdotes. They are parts of a larger mosaic of sentience. Orcas remember, they teach, they bond. And when those bonds break, they mourn. In the silence that follows a pod's passage, a stillness interrupted only by the occasional blow or the distant echo of echolocation clicks, there lingers a sense of something more than movement, something closer to presence. A network of lives tightly bound, traveling not just across oceans, but through time, memory, and emotion. And in this web, every loss leaves a trace. The open ocean stretches without horizon, a surface that bends into sky, featureless to the untrained eye. But beneath that glassy veneer lies a realm saturated with signals. Not loud ones, not lights or landmarks. Instead, intelligence flickers here in silence, in movement, in gesture. A body shifts slightly. A ripple trails wider than the motion itself. A click is answered from a kilometer away. A flash of pigment on skin says something that no mouth ever needs to speak. This is a world where cognition doesn't sit in foreheads or behind eyes. It is not shaped by tools or fire. Here, minds are built into skin, wrapped in blubber, or split across 8 limbs. Intelligence in the sea does not imitate the terrestrial. It evolves its own rules. A dolphin arcs through the shallows, moving in concert with its pod. There's no signal to turn, no call to dive, but somehow, in the span of a breath, they veer as one. It's not telepathy, it's practiced alignment. A democracy without vote counts, shaped by the way one body mirrors another. How subtle nods and synchronized dives ripple decisions through the group. Their movements, so tight and fluid, reveal a kind of silent calculus. They've weighed the risks, predators nearby, food ahead, and without discussion they've chosen their course. Social logic here runs on timing, trust and memory, not command. Far deeper, in colder waters where the sun cannot reach, a sperm whale descends with slow certainty. Her clicks pierce the blackness, echolocation carving a 3D image from echo. But not all her sounds are sonar. Some are patterned, specific, repeated, coders, shared within her family pod, and passed from mother to calf like dialects. Each pulse is a mark of identity, a social tether. Researchers tracing these coders have found clusters of whales separated not by distance or DNA, but by culture. Vocal clans span thousands of miles, sharing hunting traditions and reunion rituals, using sound not just for sense but for belonging. These are not just communication systems, they are frameworks for memory and inherited knowledge. On a coral reef, a moray eel slips from its crevice, jaw flexing with a motion that seems otherworldly. Hidden within its throat is a second set of jaws, the pharyngeal, which lunge forward to draw prey inward. It's a design more alien than terrestrial, more mechanical than organic. But the eel doesn't just ambush with biology, it hunts with intention. In certain waters it will emerge when summoned by a grouper's shimmying dance, a signal the two species share. The grouper flushes prey into the reef. The moray waits to strike from below. It is a joint operation, refined through repeated encounters. Cooperation between species, not out of empathy but efficiency. It's not friendship, it's mutual intelligence, shaped by evolutionary trial and strategic alignment. Meanwhile, miles offshore, a whale shark glides through the pelagic blue, its massive body dappled with white spots that catch stray sunbeams in patterns like shifting maps. It carries no pod, no voice, no ritual. Yet along the folds of its thick skin, microbial communities live in structured arrangements, some glowing faintly in the deep. These bioluminescent bacteria aren't just passengers. They form unique signatures, changing with the waters the shark has passed through. Scientists now use them like living timestamps to retrace migrations never seen, tagging not the animal, but the organisms it carries. Here, memory is not stored in brains, but in biological layers. Intelligence, in this case, is ecological. The fish is a vehicle, the environment its co-author, and its microbiome the record keeper. On the Arctic shelf, a great white shark prowls through dusky light, its brain responding not to sights or smells, but to voltage. Buried fish give away their position with every heartbeat, and the shark's snout, lined with ampullae of Lorenzini, reads the invisible like a compass. These predators don't only strike with force, They scan, calculate, and adjust. Some pause mid-hunt when prey behavior shifts. Others circle back, testing different angles. These are not blind reflexes. They're evidence of spatial awareness, trial learning, and decision-making, influenced by feedback, not just instinct. Not far away, a pod of orcas gathers tightly in a cold inlet. There's no hunt underway. Instead, the members move slowly, their surfacings gentle, almost quiet. At the center, a mother lifts the pale body of her dead calf, cradling it at the surface. She's done this for days. The rest stay near, altering their course to remain in formation. There's no benefit in keeping the corpse, no survival edge. And yet the ritual continues, not with panic or confusion, but with the quiet persistence of grief. In this moment, what guides them isn't strategy or calculation. It is memory, affection, the pain of absence. Orcas are not machines of instinct. They are sentient, bonded mammals, carrying emotional frameworks as complex as any found on land. And then there are the octopuses, shifting shape in reef crevices. No bones, no hierarchy, no lifespan long enough for matriarchal memory, yet they speak. Not in sounds, but in texture, pattern, color. One flares white when threatened, contracts into spikes, then slips through a hole the width of a coin. Another flattens and mimics sand while stalking prey from below. Their intelligence is embedded in muscle and motion, each limb acting semi-independently, each decision made not in a central command center, but across a distributed nervous system. They are solitary but not simple. In their short lives they learn, they solve, they deceive. Intelligence here doesn't imitate ours. It diverges entirely. Taken together, these stories form more than an anthology of strange behaviors. They reveal a tapestry of minds adapted to water, pressure, and silence. In the ocean, intelligence isn't limited to large brains or tool use. It emerges wherever it is needed, in groups that must stay together to survive, in individuals that must navigate vast distances alone, in species that coordinate without speech or learn without parental teaching. It takes many forms: sonic, tactile, electrical, microbial. It moves across boundaries we're only beginning to understand. And it's not always about problem solving. Some of it is social logic, the dolphins' group consensus or the orca's mourning circle. Some of it is architectural, the bubble net structures built by humpbacks or the calculated ambushes of cuttlefish. Some is cultural, traditions passed down not in genes but in experience. In every case, it's shaped by the environment, the fluidity of water, the vastness of space, the scarcity of solid ground. Here, brains don't always centralize. Communication doesn't require sound. Even identity isn't fixed. It pulses, shifts, adapts. What defines intelligence in the ocean is not how close it mirrors human thought, but how well it fits its place. Intelligence in the sea is relational. It is rooted in movement, responsiveness, and change. And while its forms may be unfamiliar, shimmering skin, silent signals, coordinated hunting arcs, its presence is undeniable. In the end, the ocean does not merely contain predators, it shelters thinkers, not with books or fire or hands, but with echolocation, morning rituals, camouflage pulses, and shared strategy. These minds swim, hover, slither, and breach, not to mimic us, but to thrive in their own dimension. And to listen, to truly see them, we must look not for mirrors, but for meaning in their difference.